just thought I'd take a short break just to let you know about becoming a Breakout Bestie. So we've launched a brand new subscription service for the small businesses that need us in your pocket. So why do you need to become a Breakout Bestie? Well, it's just a monthly subscription that gives you access to us when you need us. There's a closed group where you can ask us any question you need. There's also an anonymous posting on, so if you've got clients in the same group, you can ask us anything and we'll get back to you. Sometimes that'll be a quick answer, other times it might be that we need a bit more of an in-depth chat. There'll also be posts and information on the latest trends, the latest strategies for social media, upcoming things from HMRC that you may have missed, just anything you need to make your life easier to run your business. You'll also have access to our client base and money off discounts and vouchers for various services we've got coming out. This is brand new, it's only just been launched, so have a look, go on our website under Besties and sign up soon. Just be aware, there are different ways you can do it. As long as you stick to the law and you're recording all your total income and your expenditure correctly, that's through your business, it's absolutely fine. But there's different ways you can do that, different ways you can report it, different ways you can record it. At the end of the day, it's what works for you. Hi and welcome to Business Rainbows and Unicorns, where there's no such thing as failure if you don't try. This podcast is specifically for business owners or wannabe business owners. Say you've got a side hustle or you've got a passion for something and you think it'd be absolutely amazing, or you see people that do amazing things with their passions and what they enjoy doing. Well, you can do that. So please subscribe and we hope you enjoy listening to this episode. Hi and welcome to Business Rainbows and Unicorns podcast, where there's no such thing as failure if you don't try. Now, number one, thank you for tuning into this one. It is about tax, accounts, bookkeeping, and I'm sure it's not the most exciting podcast that I'm ever going to make. However, we all have to do it. If you're running your own business, whether you're self-employed, limited, partnership, a charity, CIC, whatever it might be, you need to listen to this. It's not the sexy part of the business. It's not the interesting part of the business. Well, actually, because it's sales, so you're sending invoices and getting money in. So we talk about that as well, and profit and turnover. So maybe it is, but for some people, it's really not their thing, but it's something you have to do. It's just the HMRC, the government tell us we have to do it. So at the end of the day, it's a must-have, whether you procrastinate over it and do everything on the 31st of January each year, or you actually do everything and keep your records through the year. However it works, however you do it, at the end of the day, you'll need to listen to this, and you will need to complete your records and file your returns. So we're just going to go through what you need to do, kind of the haves, the nice to haves, what's possible, what's not possible, what's legal, what's not legal, just to kind of give you an overview of, for your business, what you should and shouldn't be doing. When you start up a business, it's all exciting. It's like, I've got a really, really good trade. I don't know, making wardrobes. So I'm going to have a job making wardrobes and bookcases. Brilliant. However, there is the admin, the paperwork, records. You need to show that your income. So yes, you've got this really exciting business and you know what you want to do, but you need to send an invoice out. Brilliant. Okay, how do you do that? How do you create your invoice? Is there a purpose? Is there stuff you have to do for invoices? Then you need to spend money. Oh, I need to buy wood for my bookcase. Okay, how do you record that? Where does that money come from? How does it go? Ultimately, an overview will be how you work and how your brain works. So, for example, I have a separate bank account for my business. It works for me, so I know all the money going in and out, and I move money into my personal account to technically pay myself. Now, if you're self-employed, all that income and all the payments for your invoices is paying yourself. So you need to make sure, however your brain works and what makes sense to you, is how you do it. This is really, really important if you're going to use an accountant or a bookkeeper or take financial advice from people. just be aware there are different ways you can do it. As long as you stick to the law and you're recording all your total income and your expenditure correctly, that's through your business, it's absolutely fine. But there's different ways you can do that, different ways you can report it, different ways you can record it. And at the end of the day, it's what works for you. Like with anything, we all have different ways of doing things. We all have different ways of understanding things, especially when it comes to money. And money's quite an emotive subject anyway. At the moment, it's a really emotive subject with what's in the media with regards to the financial crisis and difficulty people are in. So you need to make sure you've got your money where you need it to be. To make your business a success, your turnover or your income needs to be higher than your expenses. End of. It's as simple as that. So as long as you can make that happen, you will be successful. How you record that and how you make that look into your final set of accounts going into the HMRC is up to you. But if you can do that and record that, brilliant. That's all you need to do. And that's really, really simplifying it to as far as I can. But it keeps it interesting and it keeps it simple for someone to understand, because it's not the easiest thing. If you're not that minded, not everyone's great at asking for money, not everyone's great at recording where they are and what they're doing. So this is where, so for example, a separate bank account can help you. Now, just to note, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a financial advisor, so it's very difficult and I wouldn't give any financial advice to anyone. So I'm just talking from where my experience lies, what I've done and what's worked for me and my clients. From my clients' experiences, because I have a number of different clients, they all work differently. Everyone wants to know things, different information, and see things different ways, which is all possible. It just depends how much and what you're willing to use. So if we start with bank accounts as an example, you only need a business bank account if you're a limited company. If you'd like a business bank account and you want the business bank account with your company name on it, go for it. But that could be your £5, £8.50, £15 a month. You don't need to spend out if you're not a limited company. If you're self-employed, you can do everything through your personal account or a separate personal account. Like I said before, I have a separate account for my business. It helps me know, and that's what works for me in terms of cash flow, how much money we've got in the business, which is always a key phrase for people. How much money have you got in your business? I.e., how much money have you got? So say, for example, I've sent out 2 invoices at £1,000 each, so I've got £2,000. For ease of maths, my expenses have been £1,000. I've got £1,000 in the business. So that's my profit. That's what I can pay myself. If you've got a separate account for all things business, it just makes it easier for you to look that up. So I use Monzo, not sponsored by Monzo, not an ad for Monzo, but I use it because it makes sense for me and works for me. So I can see on my app, open it up, I know I've got £1,000 in that bank account for my business. The other thing that Monzo works well for, every invoice I send out or every invoice that's get paid or payment I receive, we've set up so it automatically puts 25% into a tax pot. So £1,000 goes out, or £1,000 invoice goes out. Someone pays us £1,000. Immediately, 25% of that £1,000 goes out of that account into a tax pot. Still my money. I can still move it around. It's just for ease, so I can now see I've got £750 in that account. So it's just what works for you. That works well for me, because at the end of the day, if you're putting away 25% of all your income, you then have that nice pot of money ready, and it's not a surprise on the 31st of January when you do your tax on the HMRC website, file your tax return, and then they tell you how much you have to pay on the 31st of January. Hence, don't leave it until the 31st of January, because you will have a bill then that day too. So it's just being aware and stopping those surprises coming up for when you've filing your returns or doing your tax, because you just need that money aside. I've seen time and time again people come up against their repeatedly looking at what they should and shouldn't be paying out. Oh, I've got £1,000 in that account. I've got £1,000 to pay with. I'll pay myself that £1,000. So then they keep doing it, and when it comes to money, to the tax bill, they've not got that money to pay their tax bill. So it's just a key note when it actually comes to cash and cash flow, that you've put that money aside. Same for expenses. If you know you've got expenses, monthly expenses coming up, a lot of people won't take like physical retail space up straight away. They might try and do stuff online just because it's cheaper. You haven't got those big monthly expenses coming up, because so the minute you take something on and you've agreed a contract for that monthly, if you look at it like a phone contract, you know you're paying that for the next 2 years, 2 years, whatever you've signed up that contract to. You know that expense is going to come out. So you're already going to have to find that money, going to have to find that client, that customer, send that invoice out to get that money in to cover it. So when you start out and when you start your own business, one of the things, most people nowadays automatically just go self-employed. So you're working for yourself. You will just file a self-assessment at the end of the year, which will be after the 5th of April every year. So your tax year runs from April to April. You will then be, if you're self-employed, yes, you can still call yourself, whether it's Breakout, Record and Repurpose, whatever it is you want to call your business name, but you're not a limited company. Now, there's different rules, what you can claim, what you can't claim, how it works, benefits. Tax-wise, as I say, I'm not an accountant. However, when I was talking to my accountant about the decisions nowadays, there used to be like a magic number that you'd be better off tax-wise being self-employed or limited, as in, right, once your turnover gets to X, you really want to go limited because you'll be better off tax-wise. Because of all the tax changes and the laws and the legal side of things, that's not a thing anymore. So whether you go self-employed or limited will 9 times out of 10 be a decision of the risk to you and your business or your personal life or your family or your home. If you're self-employed, it's you, everything's on you. So if you owe money, if you go bust, if someone wants to make a claim against you, whatever the issue might be, it is all on you, and it puts your home or your assets at risk, or your family, whatever it might be. If you're limited, the risk is in the business. So it keeps that business completely separate to yourself and your family and your home life. So that's 9 times out of 10 why people want to make that decision. Now, if you're at that point and you're not sure, 100% speak to an accountant. There's loads out there that are absolutely amazing. We work with a few different accountants because we do bookkeeping. We do them for the bookkeeping for the accountants. So we can always recommend someone locally, but just find someone that you can know and trust and understands your business and's happy with communication back and forth, and will happily answer your questions of, okay, this is my business, an idea of income, what I'm doing, what's the risk, should I be self-employed or should I be limited, what's involved. The limited side of things is a lot more admin paperwork. You need an accountant to file your end of year, so it is an increased expense on that side of things, but is that worth it to take that on because of the risk? So the next step is, once you've decided whether you're going to be self-employed or limited, or it might be a partnership or a charity or a CIC, whatever it might be, either way you've got to keep accounts records, company records. So you might choose to do that on software or a spreadsheet. So for those of the people that remember, you used to have the old accountant's books, have double entry bookkeeping. When I first started out, I did work with someone, and even though it was all online, he liked to keep a book as a backup. So I used to have to sit and write every single invoice, every single receipt down in a big book. But ultimately, the software, the spreadsheet or the book is going to give you, or should give you, exactly the same figure. I.e., my sales have been £2,000, my expenses have been £1,000, so my profit has been £1,000. Yes, that's ease of maths, but that's as simple as you need it to be. Whenever you're asked any questions, you're filing things for the HMRC, you're answering questions if you want to take out a loan or a mortgage, or that's the information someone wants to hear of what your business is, whether you're looking to further down the line sell your business, tell someone how your business is doing. That's ultimately what the information is. Too many people freak out, or it gets overcomplicated, which is then why people procrastinate, and it puts people off keeping records or doing their books, or they leave it so long. If you can do this on a, depending on the volume of what you've got, a weekly or a monthly basis, brilliant. You know where you're up to and how much money you've got in. Again, going back to the bank, we'll talk about that, how it links up shortly. But also how you'll know from your software, your spreadsheet, where you're at. Now, I say you can still have a book. Making tax digital on your income is coming in either 26 or 27, depending on what you are. But I would say always keep it on a spreadsheet. You've got that backup, and it's just easier. It adds it all up for you. It stops human error and issues. Hold my hands up, I do bookkeeping for a number of clients and obviously our own business. There is always an element of human error. So I work with quite a few limited companies. I do all their bookkeeping. My one worry is when we get to the end of the year and the accountant never asks me any questions. So if I've done 12 months of bookkeeping or 12 months of records for someone, and we're talking about a lot of cells on the spreadsheet or a lot of information on software, something I'm doing weekly or monthly, there's always going to be an element of human error in there. If you think about whatever you do, so don't let it scare you that you're not going to get it right. However, at the end of the year, an accountant should always be, what's this? There's £100 out here. This has been put to this code, whatever it is. You just need to find someone who's going to ask those questions and make sure it's 100% right for you. Don't get me wrong, I work with a few accountants and they're well aware their questions are very annoying, and you get the email through at the end of the year going, right, 1, what's this? 2, where's this? It is annoying, but it's to get it 100% right for you. So when, or hopefully not when, should the HMRC ever come and ask you questions, you can go, here you go, here it all is, it all matches, it's all fine, everything tallies up. In an ideal world, don't let the HMRC become this big scary thing that you're worried about. The only time people are going to be worried when they've done something they shouldn't have. So start with what you need to start with, whether it's, for some people, a spreadsheet might be easy, and as I say, it adds it all up for you. You can put all your invoices on there. However, you might want to use software on a case of so we use QuickBooks Xero and Sage. For me, again, it's how your brain works in terms of what you want to use best. I prefer QuickBooks. So in terms of a business owner, it tells you exactly what you're owed, where you're at, what your cash flow is. The reports are really, really easy. A lot of accountants prefer Xero because of the accountant's end of it for the chart of accounts. However, for someone day-to-day sending invoices out and making payments and reconciling their bank, QuickBooks works really well. So that's what I'm going to use as an example. It can send an invoice out, so it's all set up. So I might put in Mrs. Jones, £100 for bookkeeping services, and it just goes out with the bank details on, etc. Same with then the expenses. So you get a bank reconciliation or a bank feed, which then shows you literally what is going in and out of your bank every single day. So it kind of forces you to know that that information should be there, the receipts should be there. Especially if you're VAT registered, you need all those receipts with the VAT on them. So if you're setting up for that, this is where, if you can set up from the get-go when you first start your company of where you want to go, if you can set up with software, it's easier when you grow or go forward. So if you want to set up certain things, so it might be your mobile phone bill, you know that's going to come in, you know how much VAT is going to be on it, that can automate that it's on there. It's there to make your life easy. It might be that you spent 50 quid on, I don't know, going back to the bookcase scenario, 50 quid on screws and bits and pieces. That's on there. might be that you actually spend £1,000 on tools and equipment. If you're limited or self-employed, that can be actually claimed as a different way depending on what the item is and how long you're going to be using it in your business for. So it's just automatically reminding you and saying, right, don't forget you've spent this. So you can code it differently, you can put it somewhere different. So when the accountant comes to do your end of year, or you look at doing your self-assessment at the end of the year, you know it's a reminder to say, actually, you can claim this differently, or you can look at it a bit differently. The bonus of that being it helps with tax, it helps with your payments, etc., etc. It's all beneficial to you. So this then comes on to bookkeeping. Now, as I said before, your bookkeeping is basically your income versus your expenditure. So what have you coming into the business? Where have your sales come from? It might be that you have a shop and you have a till system. The till system could link to the software, or some till systems already have that kind of software built into it. Don't overpay for software that you don't need. Again, going back to a spreadsheet scenario, yes, you could manually fill in and you can export. If you love the spreadsheet, yes, I'd highly recommend doing this, that you can export stuff out your till system. So you've got your CSV file and it's going in. However, you also then have to reconcile that to your bank. So it's just being aware of how those amounts are going to come through your bank feed to make sure you're covering everything. So you know in your heart of hearts that every single penny of income is accounted for, whether it's coming from a card machine, backs, transfers, or you might be taking cash. Now, you'll have seen the viral posts asking for cash. Cash is king. Having recently been on holiday, there's nothing more frustrating than a lot of card-only places. I tend, when I go away, we do use a lot of cash when we're away. We don't use our cards necessarily because we don't carry a lot of stuff around. However, you need to make sure if you've taken payment via cash, that payment needs to be somewhere, whether it's in your spreadsheet, your software, wherever you're recording it. So it might be that someone's paid you £100 cash. Brilliant. You also need to pay out that cash on your expenditure. So either the cash builds up, so you'll have heard of a petty cash tin, cash pot, whatever it might be. Either way, you need to make a note that you've received that cash. Now, the biggest thing is, if you're not recording that income of cash and then you've paid out £200 cash, that's another hole. So when the HMRC are coming to talk to you about things, where's that money? So you've recorded £200 in expenses in cash, but you've only recorded income of £100. Did you put that money in up front yourself? Is that there? Or have you not recorded some income or an invoice that has gone out? So that's one of the things to be aware of. It's one of the things HMRC rightly look out for, because that's the classic example of, oh, someone's avoiding paying tax because they've taken a load of cash. So just be aware of making sure that's recorded as well. If you're using a software, there is a way of recording petty cash, and then you have a little, there's a box on the software that says cash, £100, so you always know what should be in your petty cash tin. The same with whether it's backs payments or card payments. The income needs to go through and be reconciled. Either way, if you're using software or spreadsheet, the software is really, really good, because at the end of the day, if you're taking card payments, you might take 100, 100, 100 from 3 different customers, but the card payment's going to come in, not necessarily at £300, but it might come in at £293, because you've had that charge, the card charge or your payment provider charge taken off that amount. So just be aware that should be recorded. That £7 is then an expense, so that £7 needs to be marked somewhere. This is why, if you're doing it weekly or monthly, fortnightly, whatever it might be, it just helps with knowing exactly where that money is and where that's coming from, and you're recording those expenses. The worst thing you can do is miss out on an expense, because if you miss out on an expense, you're then overpaying tax, and no one wants to be overpaying tax. Sales and invoices. So going back to you're raising an invoice, I have a lot of clients in of what should their invoices look like? Should they include on the invoice? From people making invoices up on Word documents, Canva documents. So if you're using a spreadsheet and you haven't got software, you will need to create an invoice template. Google it, look at Canva, if you're doing a service, you don't necessarily have the expenditure. If you're doing a product, you will want, and your materials, going back to my bookcase scenario, you've already bought the wood and done the labour for that. So you're not just asking for payment for your time, it's for things you've already paid out, unless you've got payment terms on the wood. So just be aware and make sure you've got the payment terms on there and make it very, very clear on that side of things. So you know then when to chase as well. Now, hands up, I don't like chasing money. I find it really awkward for myself. Anyone else's, I'm all over it. I do credit control for people. I will chase their invoices for them because I don't know why. It's one of those imposter syndrome things of what to do. But either way, just be aware of this, where software works really, really well for you. You'll go into your customer tab and it will tell you who's overdue and when that money's due. And make sure you've got contact details for everyone. If you're sending an invoice out, what are their contact details? Have you just got an details for someone who's done the work for, or have you got an accounts person's contact details? So just make sure your invoices are as clear as possible. Any bookkeeper or accountant or anyone that does bookkeeping and records all of the expense receipts will tell you the clearer the invoice, the easier it is for them to process and pay, especially if you're dealing with really, really big companies, because it's all automated. So their software is automatically reading your invoice to make it appear on their ledger for them to know when to pay you. So just be aware of who you're dealing with in that case, of what your invoices should be like. So the sales is the nice bit. Invoices, money in, turnover, profit, all the nice things, but there's also expenses. So for records for expenses, you need to make sure, ideally, you have a copy of absolutely everything you're paying out for. This isn't always possible, get that. It's just making sure, again, if you ever get questions from the HMRC, you've paid out £100, what was that £100 for? You need to prove it was a legitimate business reason. So just try and keep all your paperwork. Now, when I say keep all your paperwork, you might use, there's online software that will take pictures of it, or your own software. So QuickBooks, you can snap a picture of your receipt, it's uploaded, QuickBooks keeps that for you. So I know a few clients that have found this really, really difficult, but you can let go of your paperwork. As long as it's a picture, it's recorded somewhere, you can then burn it, shred it, whatever you need to do to get rid of it. So just try and get a receipt or a copy of an invoice or whatever it might be for every single expense you've got for your business. Now, again, in the same terms, whether you're recording it on a spreadsheet, you'd have a separate tab, separate row, column, however you want to do it, that's written down on there. You then, if it's your software, that will do that automatically for you. So there's different ways and means in doing it on the software. If you've got 1,000 receipts or expenses coming from a client, you will want to automate that as much as possible. There are different ways and means of automating that. The idea is, all of this is, there are things you can pay for, whether it's software monthly or paying someone else to do it for you, to keep your admin down to an absolute minimum. There is enough information and programs out there to make sure you are not wasting days, weeks of your year doing your admin, doing your bookkeeping, because ultimately you did not set your business up to be a bookkeeper. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at how you're setting up and where you want to go to, because there'll be certain things you just don't want to do. And if you speak to any really successful business owner, they will have outsourced or have paid for certain things to automate things for them, because if they know what their strengths are, they will play to their strengths. And unless they're a bookkeeper or an accountant by trade, this is not their strength. So this is what they will outsource, so they can then work and earn money every single day rather than taking admin days. So once you've got your expenses going through, you've got that, whether it's on your spreadsheet or your software. This is what I was saying, to do things weekly or monthly, is to get an idea of your cash flow. You need to know where your money is. So cash flow is when you're looking at your money in and your money out. So how much cash you've got to play with. So it might be that, going back to my £1,000, that actually you've got some more expenses coming up. So say you're making 5 different bookcases, so you've spent £1,000 on wood, but you've still not been paid that first invoice. So then you're in a minus because you've not been paid for anything. You know you're going to say have £5,000 coming in when you eventually invoice the bookcases, but then when people are going to pay it, are they paying it as soon as you deliver? So you know you're going to get that in. So that's just to be aware of. You're just looking at your cash flow in your business. You will always have enough money to pay your expenses. It takes, depending on the size of the business, depending how much income or outgoings you've got, it will take a bit of understanding and knowing to get that right. Or, again, you outsource someone to look at that for you, so they can tell you, right, you've got rent coming up, you've got materials coming up, you've got this, that and the other expenses coming up. So you need to know you're getting those sales in, and ultimately your invoices and your sales, going back to the beginning, need to be higher than your expenses to be successful. So is it that you need more clients, more customers? What do you need to do to make sure of that? And that's why records are so important. If you can keep that up to date and have that on ongoing, again, going however you record it, if you've got that, as it comes in, as it's happening, you know exactly where your business stands. On a really, really positive note, in a way, if your turnover gets so high, you need to be aware of VAT threshold. It's currently £85,000 in the last 12 months. So if your records are completely up to date and you know where you're at with it, then you need to be aware of if you're encroaching that, because it might be a decision of whether you go VAT registered or not. Again, it's a conversation to be had with your accountant. But the majority of businesses, in my experience, it's whether you're invoicing out someone for personal reasons or personal projects or another business. If you're invoicing another business that's VAT registered, that's easier to make the decision whether you become VAT registered, because they can claim it back. Or if you're invoicing private customers, then in effect you are just putting your prices up by 20% to cover their VAT. Obviously doesn't go down well when you're dealing with private customers. So just be aware of that. So I hope that gives you a good overview of bookkeeping and accounts. As I say, if you are still listening and stuck with us on this one, well done, gold star, and thank you for listening. But one thing we can do is we can either train you to do it or we can do it for you. One thing the way we work is we will always do what's best for the client and our customers. So it might be that I've got customers that have got no interest in bookkeeping whatsoever, so they're proper, every bit of paperwork, information, everything comes over to us. So yeah, we can train you to do it. So we can sit with you, whether you want to use a spreadsheet. So we've got template spreadsheets we've set up for our clients and talk them through how to fill them in and when to fill them in, of when works for them. We've also set clients up on software, whether it is QuickBooks. So we've given them an overview of how all the different software works, what works best for them, help them set up their invoice templates. And then some come in for desk hire. So some of the clients that are VAT registered, every quarter they'll come in, sit with to do their VAT return, but have a couple of hours with us to help them out, to make sure, just to check, and that hand holding. Same with self-assessments. We can do self-assessments for people right from and we do still get them, whether it's Tesco's bag or shoebox full of receipts every year, and we'll sit and go through and file that self-assessment for someone. Or we can sit with someone and do it for them. Some people like that cushion. So either way, we can help on that. And it's going back to how the clients work and how they prefer to do it and what information they need. So just have a think and find a really, really good accountant. Like with anything, don't assume the accountant's for you. Get different quotes, different information, fill in and speak to who works for you, who asks the right questions, who you feel comfortable with. So like with anything you do, just be aware of that. And as I say, it all comes down to the HMRC. So don't let the HMRC become a scary place. If you sit on gov.uk, it's got answers to absolutely everything. Admittedly, it's not the best English sometimes, and you have to read something about 10 times before you understand it. But that's what people like us and accountants are here for. It's to answer those questions and help guide you through to make sure you're doing everything legally by the book and recording what you should be doing. So just be aware of that. When we're talking about cash and income and outcome, income in and outgoing on the bookkeeping side, the difficulty will be, as I said before, with regards to petty cash, you will have that different pot if you're using a software, so you know what should be on there. But also you need to reconcile your bank statement. So if you've used, and this is where having a separate bank account for your business comes into its own, if you've got a separate bank account, in effect, that bank account will be your records. It will tell you all the incomes, all the outgoings, and where you're at. If you've used software, that will link that bank feed up and you can sit and reconcile that and check it against. When I say reconcile, you need to make sure that your income and expenses, receipts and invoices match to the penny what's actually in and out of your bank. Sounds simple. There will always be something. It's always frustrating. It's always out unless you're on it literally every single day. So it needs to be, depending on the volume of what you've going in and out. And it is easy to find, but just making sure, because ultimately if the HMRC come and ask questions, they're going to look at what's coming in and out of your bank and where that's matching up to. So just make sure that reconciliation's done and checked, because that's ultimately what they will look for as reference. If all of a sudden your bank is £10,000 higher than what any records say, they're going to want to know where that £10,000 come from. So that's just to be aware of. It's not to scare you. It's just to make sure, and just for peace of mind, to make sure that's all up to date and there for you. So as always, thanks for listening. A really big thank you for listening to on this one, because I know it's not the most exciting part of the business, but it is the necessary part of the business. So if you have any questions or anything I've said doesn't make sense, please drop us a message. We're always here to help. The desk hire is always there, so you can always hire a desk and someone will be on hand to ask questions to as well. If you want us to have a look, you've set some software up, you've linked some software, maybe your till, or at the end of the day, the any software or any spreadsheet is only going to spit out as good as information as you're putting into it. So just get that right and tie it up to start with, and then you'll have peace of mind ongoing. You do not want a headache 6-12 months down the line when you're trying to do something. It's not balancing, it's not adding up, and you can't remember what happened 9 or 10 months ago. So hence why it's worth doing regularly, and we are always here to help, and we love a problem solve. So if you are that pennies, pounds out, we will sit and help you find it. So thanks for listening. As always, please like and subscribe and share this if you know someone setting up their own business and they might need help. They're not sure what to do on the account side. Give us a shout if you need help for an accountant or recommendations of people that can help you in this area. Please let us know as well. We've got a whole load of contacts that we know will work really, really well depending on how you work. So hope to see you again next time, and thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to this episode. We really hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please share with a friend who you think needs a bit of help with starting a business, or even their small business which they've already got going. Please like and subscribe to our podcast, which always helps a small business or small podcast like us. And check the show notes. We all have everything in there relating to the episode which you might need, might want to read, and links to anyone we've interviewed and certain subjects we've spoken about. And thanks for listening.